It has been almost a week since the Justice Department asked the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals to speed up consideration of its request to end the special master's review of documents taken from his Mar-a-Lago beach club. Today, the appeals court agreed to expedite the DOJ's appeal, not as quickly as the Justice Department would have liked, but on a faster track than Trump's team had proposed. Yet while this small part of the legal saga has been expedited, if you look at the bigger picture, you see that just about everything tied to the Mar-a-Lago investigation is operating on a delayed timeline, which is by design. As Politico points out, Trump's team has now managed to take the legal fight over the seized documents to 4 arenas. The New York courtroom of Special Master Judge Raymond Dearie, who Trump's team asked to review material taken from Mar-a-Lago. The Florida courtroom of District Judge Eileen Cannon, who approved Trump's request for a special master. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, where Trump asked for a delay of the Justice Department's request to speed things along. And yesterday, the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where Trump is asking for an intervention to get classified documents back before the special master and potentially throw up roadblocks to the DOJ's criminal investigation. The multiple moving parts, Politico notes, has, quote, complicated the status of Trump's legal plight, which, of course, is the point here. Complicate a matter that at its core is not that complicated. Trump took thousands of White House documents, including hundreds of classified ones, to his Florida home. And for months, he refused to return them and even lied about their existence in response to a federal subpoena that triggered an FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. Joining us now is Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel and current professor at NYU Law. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Nice to be here.
Okay, 4 different courtrooms. Who has the stronger hand at this moment? It's really hard to tell because on its face, you'd think, oh, the DOJ, because Trump's fighting all these legal battles. But those battles have the effect of slowing down and complicating the DOJ's urgent work.
Well, I think the first thing to remember is when you are a potential defendant, your job is to do what the Trump legal team is doing. Okay. That is what you do. That is, you try everything you can, and the legal system is supposed to hear those claims, and if they're not don't have any merit, you rule against them. The root of the problem here is Judge Cannon.
Yeah.
So, yes, she appointed a special master. You know that at this point that Donald Trump is ruining the day for that because the special master is
not playing ball.
It's his nightmare because he's actually a real judge. And that's why you suddenly see Judge Cannon overruling the special master. That never happens, especially when a special master is another federal judge. But she is really the root of the problem because she's done things that are just so just really improper or, just not following the facts or the law. So that's why you got the 11th Circuit involved. And you saw 2 Trump appointees, as we were discussing, who are on a panel of 3 ruling against Judge Cannon. And it's important to remember with respect to Clarence Thomas that people understand that was not really a selection by Donald Trump. He is every circuit, every federal appeals court has a justice in the Supreme Court who oversees any emergency relief. And so he just happens to be the justice for this particular circuit.
For the 11th Circuit.
Exactly. And he has limited authority. He can't just do something unilaterally that couldn't be reviewed by the entire court. And it's also unlikely that if he wanted to grant something, that he wouldn't send it to the whole court to decide.
So you're optimistic because there's a lot of speculation and concern that because Clarence Thomas is the justice that's overseeing this at the 11th Circuit, as he sits on the Supreme Court, that could somehow factor into all this. You're optimistic that the entire court is going to review it, and then what? That they are not going to find in Trump's favor?
Yeah, I would say what I'm optimistic is that either Clarence Thomas is going to deny it on its face because it's so laughable, and that he just doesn't need to accept any of this. Or 2, he could just sit on this. In other words, there's nothing that requires him to rule quickly. And in fact, there's nothing to suggest that he is expediting this review. And he could wait to see what the 11th Circuit does. And then the whole thing could be sort of mooted.
Would you really expect Clarence Thomas to actually just sit? I mean, given his previous positioning on Trump affairs, you think it's possible that he could be that unfriendly to this case as it concerns Trump's interests?
I would say, first, I think that it's important that he would send something to the full court and not decide something unilaterally. And then if you are Chief Justice Roberts, there are a lot of institutional reasons to not get involved in something like this. They have taken so many hits sort of publicly in terms of whether they are a political body. And this is a case where there's such little merit to what is being argued, and there's so many ways to not rule on this. And I mean, they just understand that the Supreme Court rarely takes anything.
Right, it's true.
So this is not one where you read the brief and you said, oh my God, there's an injustice that's been done here.
Well, yes. I mean, and I will say they're hearing cases right now that I think a lot of people are concerned about, that they wish they wouldn't take up.
Yes.
Let me, just in terms of Aileen Cannon, all roads keep going back to her, right? I mean, if there are debates, if Judge Jury somehow gets these classified documents back under his review, there could be a fight between Trump's team and the DOJ over what is actually privileged. Ultimately, Judge Cannon has to be the one to resolve that dispute. How much of an end run can the courts do around Judge Cannon, who thus far has proven to be an intractable supporter of Donald Trump, to the degree that she's, I think, not exercising the best jurisprudence?
Yeah, so just to understand it, if Donald Trump were to prevail in the Supreme Court, all it would mean is that Judge Dearie gets to see the classified documents, and there's no way in God's green earth that he's going to say, oh, these documents that are classified, I now want to share them with the Trump team. He's not going to want to do that, and there will be this tension because Judge Cannon will be wanting to give it to them. Here's where I think the off-ramp is, which is that the 11th Circuit appeal, which is now expedited, and it's on a much faster track than Donald Trump wanted, they could end all of this. Because one of the arguments that the government is making is that there actually was no jurisdiction for Aileen Cannon to sort of, poke her nose into this. And Judge Dearie actually has said the same thing, which is, can you please explain to me why this is not before the magistrate who first heard this? Because he understands sort of how normal processes work.
One person does not in this fiction. Her name rhymes with Smanin. Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel, thank you as always for your wisdom, Andrew.
You're welcome.